The Meiji Restoration began in 1868. For 256 years prior, Japan was led by an oligopoly-style government, the shogunate. Led by a head shogun, the leader of the samurais, Japan closed itself from the rest of the world in order to protect its morals, values, and culture from Western thought. This all began to end, however, on March 31st, 1854. Leading up to this date was the sailing of Commodore Matthew Perry's black ships into the Japanese Gulf at Edo on July 5, 1853, in order to open up Japanese ports to the rest of the world. Perry was instructed by President Fillmore himself to deal only with the head shogun. The meetings and feasts continued until the Japanese were of one mindset, that if they did not allow their ports to be opened, then they would be destroyed by the West. Having yet to experience industrialization, the Japanese still fought mainly with arrows, swords, and other forms of non-explosive weapons, similar to a medieval time era. The Japanese government realized that their country was in no position to defend itself against a foreign power, and Japanese could not retain its isolation policy without risking war from the United States of America or any other nation. On March 31st, 1854, after weeks of long and tiresome talks, Perry received what he had been working so dearly for, a treaty with Japan. The treaty provided for 4 parts. 1. Peace and friendship between the United States and Japan. 2. Opening of 2 ports to the American ships at Shimoda and Hakodate. 3. Help for any American ships wrecked on the Japanese coast and protection for shipwrecked persons. 4. Permission for American ships to buy supplies, coal, water, and other necessary provisions in Japanese ports. After Perry sailed off, the Japanese people thought of their shame of not being able to fend off an outside attack, nor to oppose these very unfair clauses in the treaty. The government, however, attempted to westernize the country by industrialization in order to fend off other open attacks like this. However, they failed to protect their citizens, causing an internal discontent against the harm to national sovereignty brought on by the Westerners. This led to the Emperor Komei to found an ideology of Sono Joi, literally meaning revere the emperor, expel the barbarians. This furthered the internal discontent, actually causing the line of shogunal succession to come under fierce attack. The shogunate, therefore, realized not only the danger to their rule, but the danger to the Westerners as they were being expelled by either peaceable means or by force by the people. This led to internal battles which continued until 1866, when Emperor Komei died, and his son, the Emperor Mutsuhito, or Sachinomiya as he was known in his childhood, resumed his place. This also is the time period when the shogunate at the time passed on, leaving his position to the next in line. Sachinomiya was born 8 months prior to the arrival of Matthew Perry. He was to become the Emperor Meiji. On January 27, 1868, shogunate forces attacked the imperialists, beginning the Boshin Civil War. The imperialists soon gained an upper hand, receiving little to no foreign aid, as opposed to the shogunate, who received help from French military leaders, perhaps working under the idea of legitimate rule. The imperialists, led by Saigo Takamori, began marching north, finally coming to Edo, surrounding it and gaining an unconditional surrender from the shogunate war minister Yoshinobu. This returned the rule to the imperialists. However, there still remained some who resisted. In the north, Kitashirakawa Yosashishi fled with the partisans of the Tokugawa shogunate in order to defeat the imperialists and appoint him the new emperor. The imperialist forces moved north, incurring further losses on their side, yet remaining victorious, gaining several modern weapons, such as the Gatling gun, which proved to be key to their success. These encounters soon led to the final battle at Hakodate Bay, resulting in the final loss of the shogunate. This led to the unification of Japan under Emperor Meiji. They moved the nation's capital from Kyoto to Edo, which became known as Tokyo. Immediately, reforms began to take place. Under the shogunate, many laws were passed in 1875 and 1880 which prohibited press criticism of the government, restricted discussions of national laws, and limited government and public gatherings by requiring police permission. The Meiji Restoration and government repealed such laws. Therefore, there was much pressure on the new emperor to make social, economic, and other styles of reforms, ones that the new government took on without a moment's loss. A new constitution consisting of 5 main parts passed in 1889 called Gokaju no Goisemon, or more literally, the Oath in 5 parts. It became known as the Meiji Constitution and contained the following points. 1. Deliberative assemblies shall be widely established and all matters decided by open discussion. 2. All classes, high and low, shall be united in vigorously carrying out the administration of affairs of state. 3. The common people, no less than the civil and military officials, shall all be allowed to pursue their own calling so that there be no discontent. 4. Evil customs of the past shall be broken off and everything based upon the just laws of nature. And 5. Knowledge shall be sought throughout the world so as to strengthen the foundation of the imperial rule. This laid the way for international studies, sending diplomats, students, and engineers to learn how the Western world worked, thought, and studied. This would make the industrialization of Japan to take less than 50 years, astounding the Western world, who had been largely closed off again. Emperor Meiji also proposed economic reforms, such as a unified Japanese currency, the yen, banking, tax laws, stock exchanges, and a better communications network. This allowed the industrialization to go smoothly, giving the people incentives to invest in the government, which gave the government more power overall. However, there were some who lost out. The remaining samurai, who had become ronin, which are wandering fighting mercenaries without a leader, lost their authority over others, and in the end gained little to nothing in comparison to their losses. The feudal system in Japan was at its end. However, Japan learned that she could no longer remain isolated. Concerned at the potential of war, they soon fought China in 1894 through 1895 for the control of Korea, which they viewed as a dagger that plunged straight at the heart of Japan. China soon discovered that Japan was a stronger opponent and swiftly admitted defeat. China signed the Treaty of Shimonoseki on the 17th of April, 1895. This treaty agreed to the total independence of Korea and ceded the Liaodong Peninsula in the southern Xinjiang province, Manchuria, which is in present-day China, Taiwan, and the Pescadores Islands to Japan in perpetuity. However, this led to further war, as Manchuria was taken by Western powers and almost solely inhabited by Russia. Therefore, on February 10, 1904, Japan declared war on Russia. Russia, not having a warm water port, or a port that was on the Pacific Ocean, sailed their ships around the European and African peninsulas, not having a port closer to Japan. They intended to supply their ships by using their extensive railroads, especially the 5,000-mile Trans-Siberian Railroad. However, the Japanese had plenty of time to prepare, and swiftly attacked and defeated the unsuspecting Russian forces before they could reach their destination, causing a small revolt in Russia which almost deposed of the ruler Tsar Nicholas II. Seeing the new threat, American President Theodore Roosevelt negotiated peace between the two, creating the Treaty of Portsmouth, signed in the U.S. Navy facility at Portsmouth, New Hampshire on the 5th of September 1905. Russia ceded many territories to the Japanese, who in 1910 annexed Korea, which left them unchecked in their naval developments. The final loss caused a revolution in Russia, leading to the death of Tsar Nicholas II and his family, and continued internal revolts until the communists take over. All of these events were under the watchful eyes of Emperor Meiji, who had little say in the affairs of Japan, due to the fact he was a pacifist. He later died on July 30th, 1912. His successor, being Emperor Taisho, established the Taisho period, the end of the Meiji Restoration.